Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Urbana City Council special meeting. I do want to let people know that we have 3 separate meetings scheduled for tonight. The first will be a special City Council meeting. That'll be followed by a public hearing through the Committee of the Whole on the budget, and followed by the Committee of the Whole meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Miss Wu. Here. Mr. Evans.
Here.
Miss Hersey.
Here.
Miss Colasetti.
Here.
Miss Bishop.
Here.
Miss Wilkin. Mr. Quisenberry.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here.
Point of order. Councilmember Wilkin has said that she's on the line, but is still getting wait music. So I just want to make sure that was clear that she's trying to join.
Next up is approval of minutes. I don't believe we have minutes tonight. There are no additions to the agenda. We have no presentation scheduled. This brings us to public input. Does anyone wish to address this special City Council meeting?
I could defer. Why don't I? Okay. Paul Muth, 207 West Illinois. I was here several meetings ago, and I actually played an NPR coverage of Minneapolis police reforms into the microphone. I thought it worked quite well, and I did it to highlight the community responder program that they've initiated, which eliminates police calls to, is this loud enough? Groups, incidents that don't require anybody with a gun. But the other part that came out I found interesting too, and I think the people that are opposing expansion of police after so many budget increases over the last 5 years for the police wouldn't object to that program, and that was something that could be described as monitoring the police for stress, possible problems with them doing their duties well. It is a stressful job, we'll all admit that. But that's a program that I had not heard of before, and I don't know if there's anything comparable to that inside the current police system here presently. I've never heard of anything like that. Maybe it's done informally, but they have actually officially have it and did a hire for someone to actually monitor and talk to people after maybe particular stressful events and that sort of thing in their lives on the job and perhaps off the job. So that's the early intervention system, they were calling it. And I thought that deserved highlighting because it isn't just community alternative policing and community responders that aren't armed. I've attended a number of the meetings at the IMC, public safety meetings, and I did want to reprise at the top, and I'm remembering now that many from the NAACP called for some public meetings, at least one. She's generally supportive of what we'll call the Norfolk model, and it does look quite good, but if the reform doesn't start with looking at community responders and just putting more hires in the police department, I see it as flawed from the get-go. I really think that social programs and other intervention are really necessary after hearing some of the statistics about poverty in Urbana, which isn't, the obscuring of the student income is not part of that. And actually students go to food banks now, so they have a poverty problem as well. And I think that's the root of a lot of, you don't have to go to Les Miserables and look at the guy that's stealing a loaf of bread and becomes a champion. The people like George Will actually appreciated that idea. But I'm getting too literary here, I guess. Not that I've seen it in a while. But things like, even in Southern Illinois, Carbondale spent $1.1 million of the American Rescue Plan for stress trauma treatment centers, girls and boys clubs, the library, and our alternative sports program through Carbondale Junior Sports. all of which I think should be part of the budget, because the budget actually, as they say, it is a moral document, and what we do with the resources we have does define us as a community. And I've been agitating for people to write in. I don't know where the clock is anymore. Oh, there it is. For people to write in, and I assume those will be read into the record at some point. And I was going to urge that Champaign natives, residents, citizens, write in, not with anything, but just maybe anecdotes from their programs, because I'm in the position of being envious of some of the intervention programs that Champaign has that Urbana doesn't have. So, obviously, it looks like Chief Boone isn't here, but I'd specially prepared a line for him, which was, he was quoted as saying that Policing 101 was what he wanted to institute. I think in a college community, we could have some 400-level police reform. So thanks for bearing with me, and step right up.
My name is Tamika Davis. I'm from Champaign, Urbana. I work with First Followers from the beginning. My story is a little different. You guys are asking for 15 police officers. I'm asking for more resources for mental health, for suicide prevention. I hold a picture of my nephew, Bennett Ironman. The police knew that he wanted to kill himself. They did nothing. They took no measures to help my nephew. He told the police officer, if you approach me, I'm going to kill myself. They did nothing to help him. He walked in Myers. He walked around Myers. He went to the restroom of Myers. He stepped out of Myers. And the police said, Bennett Ironman. And what he had in his hand, he dropped, and he was able to pull a gun out and shoot himself. What was the resources? But y'all have shut a whole highway down for somebody to say they're going to jump off a bridge. Is nothing set in place to help mental health people. When the police get there, it's all aggression. Why? Because if you can't handle it, get somebody that can. Pay into the city, pay into resources that's going to help these situations, especially suicide. Me and my family still has to suffer, and he left a 13-year-old here. Now, I'm not going to act as if he was innocent, because he was not. But it was resources to stop this, to stop the suicide. Where was it set? Nothing was put in place. Nothing was implemented. Nothing at all. And we suffer the death. We suffer just saying, what could have happened? What was the preventive measures to this? There was none. So before you allow 15 more officers, what about getting people that's going to help the mental health people? And that's what it's all about. As citizens together, as people, as humans, help us help our community. And not just a person showing up with a gun. That heightens the situation. It don't help the situation. Because sometimes an officer will get out with aggression, and guess what that's going to do? That's going to make me aggressive. But if you come somebody else without this blue suit and a gun approaching, maybe y'all get different results. And that's what it's all about. But this picture I hold in my hand, this could have been prevented. This could have been prevented. My nephew would still be here if it was put in place. He walked around a store, went to a bathroom,
Ma'am,
and came out.
please address the city council. Thank you.
And he came out and he shot himself. And they knew it. Thank you.
It's hard to come up here behind that. My name is Janice Walker. I reside in Urbana. I also work for First Followers. And I just want to tell you a short story about a client that I serviced approximately 2 months ago. This client had been incarcerated for over 5 years. He actually spent his time on parole in prison because he had nowhere to go. When he came out, he was given, of course, a bus ticket to a small town south of here, and some way, somehow, he found himself in Champaign looking for First Followers. Lo and behold, he's walking down the street, and some of our personnel saw a man walking down the street looking aimless and with a jail bag, and, hey, you must be looking for us. And he was. Came in, told his story. Come to find out, he had experienced a severe brain injury where he had been in confinement a lot of the time that he was in prison, probably to keep him safe, which was the same predicament he was going to find in the streets of Champaign, Urbana. Not being suitable to be on the street, we took up the charge to get him temporarily in a hotel, get him stabilized through collaboration with Rosecrans. I want to give Rosecrans a lot of credit for what they did with this man along with First Followers. We together, collaboratively, got him off the street into a group home. He is doing very well because he's stabilized. You guys, if people don't have a roof over their head and they don't have food to eat and they don't have medical attention, mental health, wellness services, this is going to blow up in our faces. It's blowing up in our faces. What does more policing do? It's been proven. It only gets worse. It's been proven over and over and over and over in major cities that it doesn't allow healing, hope. We can do something different here. We have the opportunity to do something different here. But yet we want to go down the same old road that we know doesn't work. Why? Why? Tell me why. You don't have to deal with the people that I deal with. day in and day out, calling me, telling me they're sleeping in their car. Can I give them a hotel stay somewhere? I don't make that kind of money, but I do it anyway. We can do better. I know we can. Hurt people. Hurt people.
Hello, City Council. This is Sarah Nixon. I am a longtime Urbana resident, and I work and pay taxes in Urbana. And I just wanted to come tonight to state that I think, based on what we've seen so far, that we are lucky to have Chief Boone here. And I think it's clear that our new chief brings a history of success, a history of actually implementing and initiating programs and practices that work, that impact the crime. And I also see that Chief Boone cares about minority issues, including issues that are very important to me, domestic violence, family violence, child abuse. And I think it's important, too, that Chief Boone has the confidence of the majority of the minority community in Urbana. Also want to say, people are saying, wait for the Barry Dunn report, wait for the Barry Dunn report. I think the Barry Dunn undertaking is a huge distraction and a tactic to delay issues and the community's outcries and demands for an alternative response model beginning in 2010, and here we are in 2024. I don't think we're going to have any fantastic revelations from the ultimate Barry Dunn report, and I can tell you that Michelle Weinzel, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, who spent the vast majority of their life as a white male authority chief of police, does not speak for me as a woman, does not address women's issues, didn't address domestic violence issues any more than in passing at the public conversations that I attended and from what I see so far. And I think it bears emphasizing that no less than a university professor who is an expert in statistics had to come here twice, not once but twice, to point out the flaws, is putting it politely, in the report documents so far. If that were to have been handed in an academic context, the grade received would have been an F, and also facing possible sanctions for plagiarism. Forgotten my next point about Barry Dunn, but if it comes back, I will make it. I recently submitted a FOIA for materials that would document conversation between Urbana and our local domestic violence agencies over the past period of time, when the period of time during which Chief Boone has been in office. What I see in the results, which I haven't studied in detail yet, is that Chief Boone is already working with the community agencies. I know from local domestic violence professionals that until now, the conversation has been sluggish at best between the UPD and those in the community that work to address these problems. And I just want to say, can we allow Chief Boone to continue the work he's doing? I'm not saying fund what might be exorbitant funding demands immediately rushing into that. But I think what I'd like to see is everyone working together to support the chief. He has experience and know-how. I think he could do really good things, and I jumped ahead. From what I'm seeing in the FOIA, responsive FOIA materials, he's initiated a really valuable conversation, and it's not just a conversation. He's bringing domestic violence onto the agenda, back onto the table, and I want to see that continue. And I think, like I said, I think really good things can happen, and I just really felt it important to come in and state this because critique of issues is good, but let's support the chief and allow him to do his job, because I think he can do a really great job. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephen McGuire. A budget is a moral document, and preparation of the budget is indicative of how one's morality is changing. The fact that the mayor promised Chief Boone the votes of the city council while interviewing him and not consulting the city council, and that she plans to just leave after implementing a fiscally irresponsible budget that taxes will have to be increased for, but she isn't going to be around for that. That's indicative of immoral disrespect. The fact that you are willing to spend, I believe it's $4.6 million that the police are asking for, that's 15 times, over 15 times as much on police as social services. That voices a lack of care. And I know why you care 15 times as much for them as for us. When Tamika tells her heart-wrenching story about her nephew's suicide, that doesn't hit you in the pocketbook. When the police come to you, you know it may. Also, I'm disturbed by Chief Boone talking about surgical deployments in poorer neighborhoods and neighborhoods where gun violence has occurred. Surgical deployment is a military term, and this indicates that he's thinking about these problems through a military lens. Militarization of the police has harmed so many communities. My main message for all of you is you don't have to vote on this so quickly. Gather information. As flawed as the Barry Dunn report is, search for as much data as you can. Find out, talk to your constituents. You don't have to vote immediately on this. If it's good policy to increase the police budget, you can still do it a few weeks later. And slow down and listen to your constituents. Thank you.
My name is Alexandria Stone, and I've been a CU resident for about 3 years. Last week, a police officer spoke about why he felt as though the Urbana police needed a budget increase. He told us essentially that he deserves a salary of $94,000 because of his long days, 16-hour shifts, always being on call. But those aren't circumstances unique to being a police officer. The police training program at UIUC cost around $7,000 for the 16-week program to become a police officer. Far cheaper than college and a fraction of the time. Yet, they make more than so many people with college degrees do. They complete their job training with little to no debt, while social workers, doctors, and teachers are burdened with student loan debt for years to come. And there is no real evidence that being a cop is more dangerous than any other profession. Realistically, they are the cause of danger, the source of escalation, in many scenarios that they are in. If the police feel overworked with their 16-hour shifts, we come here presenting and fighting for a solution. Giving them $2 million to further enable their work is not the solution. The solution is alleviating the work, Give the $2 million to the community, to social work, not-for-profit centers who desperately need more caseworkers, to homeless shelters and temporary homes that help families transition into more stable housing. People do not commit crimes because they want to. People resort to criminal activity out of desperation. If we prioritize the well-being of our community, most of the crime will sort itself out. If our community is well-fed, housed, taken care of both mentally and physically, the work of the police will decrease naturally. The 16-hour shifts will go away. Lives will be saved when simple mental health calls are not met with a gun, but with a trained crisis response team. Each and every one of us will be safer and happier if we fund our communities, neighbors, teachers, and social workers, rather than our police departments. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Zelli, and I've lived in the CU community for over 30 years. So I'm struck by a few things. Like last week, we heard from a police officer in public comment asking us to look into these Cahoots-style programs, look at the data, when clearly he hadn't done that himself. He was curious about how many calls still needed police interaction. One of the large concerns the chief has about having these programs outside the police and having these people deployed without an accompanying police officer. And this case study from 2019 for the Cahoots program was that 300 phone calls out of 24,000 that year needed a police to come out with the social workers. We're curious about how we're going to fund and find someone who's interested in working here. And yet I find the main thing hitting the media about having trouble finding a social worker is whether they have to directly work with the police or not. Because they're worried that they're doing more harm to their community than they are good by interacting directly with the police officer. We have no data that the police officer need to be deployed to every single call. None of the programs and none of the pilots and none of the case studies nationwide show that. And yet that is a deep data-driven concern by the chief that presented an entirely adolescent budget proposal that didn't have any numbers or graphs, right? So he wants to be data-driven with anecdotes and stories while asking you to fund more positions and more overtime, something you wouldn't have allowed the fire department to do. You expected the fire department to actually have a good budget. You're willing to hand the police millions for something a middle schooler could have done. I don't understand it. I'm struggling to understand any of this. Basically, I think the police nationwide want police alternatives to be incorporated into their budget because it gives them budgetary control. It gives them power over money. They want the police involved in every call, and they want to control all of the hires and the budget around all of those positions. It's a power play. We don't need that. We just need the money going to public safety or some other department, and you can have them still work with dispatch. It would be like the police asking to control the fire budget. 911 still gets you a fire dispatch. You don't need police in control of this element of the budget. That's not structural. And I think that the mayor is interested in funding a fiscally responsible budget that doesn't account why did the grocery tax, we need to repair that. We need to refund that. Urbana needs to refund that. Urbana needs to fund all of this new expansion. And yet this budget doesn't accommodate any of the tax increases. And old versions of it did. So why did you and the city manager and the finance department pull that out of this budget proposal? Why is this special hearing not include any of our tax revenue? Why are we passing a budget with a shortfall? You are here for fiscal responsibility. You always have been. It was one of the things you campaigned on, Mayor, and you're going to leave us with a budget and ask the next mayor to fund it? There's power plays going on here when the community should come first. So I thank the representatives here that are actually listening to their constituents.
Hey there, City Council. My name is Ben Jocelyn. I'm an Urbana resident. First, I want to say while I have lots of known qualms about the Bear Dunn report, I absolutely reject the anti-trans rhetoric used by an early commenter when talking about that report. That has no place here. Second, Second, I want to talk about a specific line item in the budget revision, I believe from last year. There's a fund that's $105,000 on page 46 that's being swept from the set aside that was used to fund the budget for the police survey. And the study of public safety, and it's being put back into the general fund because, and it sort of says, because this study has been funded, we're going to put that fund back into the budget so that they can be used for new expenditures. I don't think that anyone here believes that the work of that study has been done yet, and I would very much like to see that set aside, and if you need help finding it, I think, like, on the document I saw is page 46. It's an item under police, and there's first a segment about something else, but the, like, 3rd through 5th sentences are about that. And I'm happy to talk to anyone about that. Next, I want to just sort of talk about all the things that we've done. We tried so hard for so many years, whether it be build programs, not jails, CU Citizens Police for peace and justice. We've been looking for alternatives for decades. Giant crises came up, and we sort of said, we really want another model of public safety, and you worked to provide that for us. And I am so grateful to you for that. We started this work, and again, while I know that you have heard my qualms with Barry Dunn's report and their conclusions, they have good data. One of the most important parts of that data has been reviewed by a couple of the folks in the crowd, and they looked at some of the numbers that they used to determine calls for service and responding to the current caseload. And the current caseload is more than the demands that our police department can find with the way that we're currently spending our time. But one of the other things they found is that our department averages longer per call than all other departments. And one of the reasons I believe that that's true is you don't just look at how many, like, one single officer, the time from start to finish, but you look at backup. And if you look at the folks who are responding in this town, I think that more often than not, we have more backup, which I also appreciate. But it is not the necessity that so many folks have. I think that, like we said, there's so many problems that, while I'm glad I'm not responding to shootings, and I think that the police are the folks who I would call if someone was shooting. If we want to solve, they're there for response to shootings. If we want to keep shootings from happening, we need to solve problems that the police have never and will never solve. So I'm not here for, I don't think that the alternative response should live in the police department. I think that there is no way that that will ever serve people who've been wronged by the police department in the past, because they'll be more hesitant. I think that a large section of this is domestic violence. We know that there's data out there about undocumented families and their inability to get help because the police department may deport them or their family members. I have talked to folks in the trans community who, at which I am part of, yeah, I think we have plenty of city employees who save more lives every year. I think that long-term investment in safety is investing in people's lives, and I think that it's really dangerous when the request for more funds is not based on data. Chief Boone has sort of said that his he's a data-driven person, but when he came to you for a budget response, he had nothing but emotional calls. When we do that, you're put in a position where to say that you approve of Chief Boone and believe in what he's doing, you have to argue on emotional grounds. And while there's lots of people here who have very radically different opinions about what policing should look like, whether or not it should be in the police department or community response should live outside of it, or whether or not we should get rid of the police altogether, our request that we don't fund a radical expansion of the police department is not a radical demand. It is a very, very moderate position that is being framed as, like, not expanding the police is a moderate position. A radical expansion of the police is a dramatically different type of position. And yeah, I really appreciate all your time and hope you have a lovely rest of your night.
Hello, good evening. My name's Jane McClintock. I'm a resident of Urbana, and I've been helping with a petition on this issue, and I just wanted to give a quick update on the petition. I know I sent the numbers to you guys this morning, but I thought I'd come back. Even as I was writing it, we had 2 more. I almost wrote you back, but now we're at 618, and with the most of those coming from Ward 5, Chandra's ward 2nd, largest number coming from Jaya's ward, and 3rd largest number from Mary Alice's ward. So that is total in Urbana, not including today because I didn't have time, of 335 in like voting wards, and then in Urbana addresses 358. So I want to thank everyone for participating. It's really helpful to hear from constituents, I'm sure, sitting in a role of representation. And our hope in putting this petition together was to make it easier for you all to hear from your constituents, and I hope it did help you. We tried to take what we'd heard in our public safety forums early in the spring and kind of coalesce that into what we thought we were hearing from the community. But as I interacted with people around this petition, I was really blown away by the level of engagement, the level of knowledge, experience, just like the nuances of ideas that people had around this petition. And I realized that there was no way that in a few sentences we could capture it. And so I really hope that people also have been reaching out to you in person and sharing their thoughts. I've really learned a lot from folks. We've been talking to lots of people in human service professions, teachers, social workers, nurses, a retired police officer, someone who volunteered with CASA for a long time, court-appointed special advocates. And people had so many experiences. Some people were really not sure that we needed response. What they really came out and they said, we need services. Like me in my position as a teacher, I'm like, I can call a police officer and they can come, and most of the time, I have a decent experience, and that's all well and good, but then it's heartbreaking for me and the police officer that we cannot send this student to, the maybe addiction recovery that they need or the mental health service that they need. So that was a pretty big theme, but I will say that even bigger was just people thought that it made a ton of sense that we should send the right person to the right call. And they just thought, if we have a mental health problem, if somebody is threatening suicide, like this heartbreaking story we've heard, we need to send someone who has training in that. And they were like, well, we wouldn't want to be in the position to have to respond to that kind of specialized crisis without training, and we shouldn't put our police officers in that position. Finally, I think the thing that was really universal was just the understanding. And I was surprised how much people were paying attention to this and knew what was going on. And they were like, but why are they doing this now? I don't get it. What's the rush? Crime is at a low. We're in the middle of this study. Even if the study is not everything we want it to be, we're still figuring it out. We still have community organizations that have expertise, and we're coming together to figure something out because we want it, because we've been saying we wanted it for years. And there's no rush to do this now. So I will say that, coming away from this, I feel a lot of optimism that we really can all come together, that, I think that you guys might feel like, oh my God, we have to do something now because everybody's telling us not to do something now, and, then they'll disappear, and what will we be left with? But I really don't think that's the case. I really think people are paying attention to this, they're invested in it, and they care about it, and they'll be here for the long run with you, supporting you on doing something that really matters and that's really popular. And they're not going to be, they're not in it to, denigrate the police or, ruin their day. They're just saying, hey, we need something else. We need this. And, it's not, so I just want to say I had a lot of hope in our community. And, I hope that we can build on the Venn diagram of where, I've been hearing from the police officers and they're saying, hey, we don't have enough services for people. We don't have enough, that we can offer. And it's, all we can do is respond. And it's and we want these more positions because we need more of us to do this. And, so I hear that, but I also am I think we're actually trying to build on the fact that we want that job to be easier. So I've taken my time, and I really appreciate your time and attention and your service.
Good evening. I'm James Kilgore, resident of Urbana and also from First Followers. I almost didn't come to the meeting tonight because one of the people that we provide services for called me and wanted me to bring him his medication because he had fallen down the stairs and hurt his back. I suppose I could have dialed 911 and asked for somebody to go do a wellness check on him. But this is someone who has a long history of incarceration, is not going to be welcoming the police at his door when he's in pain. And I had to say, I'll come by later because I need to come to this meeting because important things are happening here. So I want to reiterate some of the things that other people have said. And my major point, which several people have already made, is slow down, slow down, slow down. There is no rush to finish, to do this and leave the job half done. Because once we cross that line, we're not coming back. So some things I would like to see finished. Everyone has said, yes, we want to see the end of the Barry Dunn report. That's taxpayer money that's going to be completely wasted if we don't even look at it before we make decisions on how to spend money. Secondly, there's been a recent report on use of force that hasn't even been looked at, that needs to be, that hasn't been looked at and needs to be thoroughly interrogated. Thirdly, to my knowledge, I haven't seen any survey of this community where this hub is supposed to go. What do the people that live in the Silver Water area, what are they saying about police? And what are they saying about other alternatives? Because it's one thing to go into a community and say, do you want more police? It's another thing to go into a community and say, well, you can have more police, or you can have more daycare, you can have more jobs, you can have more streetlights, you can have better housing, you can have lower rents, et cetera, et cetera. And if you conduct a survey which offers people a range of options, like we did at First Followers in 2022, we found that people looked for almost every alternative besides policing to deal with the issue of community violence. So, lastly, I just want to say that I'd like to see you explore no budget increase and set yourself up to amend the budget later when you've done a thorough study of the issues behind what we're looking at today. And to follow up on an issue that was raised last week, President Obama's task force report. President Obama's task force report says community policing units should not be part of police departments. They should be a standalone entity to serve the community, not embedded in the police department. And the proposals that we've seen have embedded that unit in the police department. We want those responders, but we don't want them embedded in the police department. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I was sent up here last minute to represent CU Trauma Resiliency Initiative to speak on the topic at hand. I spoke with Chief Boone after the coalition meeting back on Wednesday to offer our free services and support to Urbana, Champaign, and all the areas in Champaign County. We are doing groups across the cities. We're offering free mental health support throughout the county. We are responding when individuals are shot, stabbed, attempted suicide, and other traumas, and they come into call, they call our number. And we send staff over to respond, to offer our supports and services. Some accept it, some don't. But we show a presence. We've connected with different agencies throughout the community to offer free training, Trauma 101, Healing Solution, whatever the case might be, whatever you need, wellness. We offer all of that for free because we care about the community. I'm not anti-Chief Boone. I think he's a good guy. I'm not anti-law enforcement. However, I do believe there's a certain way of doing things. And establishing quality relationships is always number one. I haven't been in here since Imani was born. 6 years ago. This raggedy blanket that she's holding on to marked some of my traumas as far as the energy that I put into CU Fresh Starts, the gun deterrence initiative that was brought to this community that had great purpose, but to me was not fulfilled. We had a steering committee of everyone you can want at that table, but individuals are more concerned about how much money I made compared to their probation officers, why I'm carrying these individuals to their court appointments, all kind of silly stuff. No one was bringing resources. Access to resources is an important part of this equation. Adding law enforcement is not going to change your community. I'm sorry. Adding a social worker is not. We have to figure out how to gain resources. So again, I've opened myself up to come to any meeting anybody is having. You can reach out to me. Our phone number, 673-7122. You can email me, Dante, D-O-N-T-E, at traumaresiliencyinc.org. I'm here. We're putting on events throughout the summer, throughout the year. I'm here. I'm at the beat dancing and passing out flyers. I'm anywhere I need to be, at churches, doing the North End. We are door to door, whatever it takes. We're doing that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the first student that I lost to gun violence. October 9th, 2009. P.Y. Carrington. We stopped calling his name, and he's the reason why we have the Champaign Coalition. The reason. So let's not forget our community. Let's stop waiting downstream on these dead fish. We need to get on upstream and figure out what's going on. And I do agree with being patient as we figure this out collectively, because without the resources, we don't have, without the relationship, we don't have anything. Those participants was holding on because they had a trusted face in front of them. And so let's not do that again. Let's all collectively work together and make this happen. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Faith Ryan. I've been an Urbana resident for 5 years now. I'm here again asking the council to delay the police budget's expansion in order to collect adequate community and stakeholder input. I hope that that ask is clear enough for you. At yesterday's town hall, we highlighted the lack of resources available to people ages 17 to 30. People ages 17 to 30 have nothing to do because we siphon resources out of the community and into militarized policing. People 17 to 30 are here, coming to city council every week, fighting for something to do. We are fighting for the ability to have the resources you say we need so badly. Activism and engaging local governance is the only institutional outlet we have. I'm 23. I don't want to spend my Monday evenings doing this, but I am because I deserve better, and all of us in here deserve better. It feels as if there is no place for emotions, especially like anger and frustration here. It is hard to pull yourself from politics because politics are inherently personal. I'm one of the people who was in the room that so desperately needed resources, who was burnt out, who was facing job and income and housing security. I shouldn't have to know you for you to care and to hear me. I live here and that should be enough. Grace isn't here, and she called me out during last week's meeting, and it reminded me that I don't know still if you understand the fundamental thing about what I was saying. This is why I don't think you're listening to me. And Chris, again, I thank you for reaching out to me a couple weeks ago. I wasn't asking for help with my assault. My community is helping me, for which I am endlessly grateful. I wanted you to consider my traumatic experience with police brutality in the public comment as one more reason to not approve this budget's expansion right now. The thing is like you can help me, and it's by not approving the budget as it is. Like, I know you said you couldn't, and that's not what I was asking for, but when I think about it, you can, and it's listening to all the people who are asking you to slow down. So, thanks.
Hello, my name is Kate. I don't have a planned speech today. I just want to come up here and say that I'm also asking that you delay the police budget or just don't give them millions more dollars. There's so many of us here who have been here before or haven't been here before who are showing up and telling you that we don't want this. And it's your job to listen to us. I think tonight is going to... We all know that you value money more than us. I guess tonight is a measure of how much. But please just listen to your constituents. You've already heard so many stories of just how much police have hurt our community. And there's a reason that we don't trust police, because so many of us in this room have been victims or been witnesses to police violence. And I've seen how messed up the system is. Police never are held accountable, and they're allowed to do whatever they want. We don't want more police. We don't need more police either. As someone who's going to school to be a social worker, what someone said earlier about not wanting to work with the police, I would be willing to be on a crisis response team, but not if I'm working with police. There is no way I could ever work with police. And you'll find so many social workers who would be willing to work as crisis responders if they didn't have to work with police. There's no reason to put them together. You don't need to respond to mental health situations or to simple non-violent crimes with a gun. There's no reason to. And I think that you'd find that a lot of situations would not become violent if you did not send police with guns who use aggressive, escalating tactics out to respond to them. So please do not pass this police budget. We're all begging you not to. We are doing what you say you want, which is to come to you and voice our opinions. So please listen to us and don't fund the police. Thank you.
So, like pretty much everybody else here, I don't want you to fund the police because I just have a simple question. Is this the city of Urbana or the police precinct of Urbana? Because more and more so, it looks to me like cities across the country are choosing to be police precincts instead. You are funding more and more police and causing more and more violence in our communities. They become larger and larger parts of the budget as social services dwindle. Police are inherently reactive, and they are not capable of preventing crime because they cannot come until 911 is called. If you really want to help out your communities and you really want to make a better life for your constituents, you need to engage in preventative care, tackle things that are the root cause of so-called issues like stealing and fraud and things like that, because those are acts of desperation. If you want to prevent those, prevent poverty, prevent inequality, prevent these racist and homophobic and white supremacist and bigoted systems from continually oppressing people across the nation. We are seeing cop cities getting built all over. I don't think anybody in this room thinks we need to militarize police more. There's already enough violence. There's already enough people dying. In 2021, our precinct committed acts of force about 150 times, and 74% of the time, those were against African Americans. Police don't do anything to help out the community in terms of crime prevention. I'm glad we have them here in case of active shooters, but as said earlier, that's a handful of cases compared to the 24,000 times police are called yearly. Do something to help out your community. Just buy an apartment complex and house the homeless. That alone would save countless more lives than another dollar going to a police precinct that is this racist and this antiquated. Police started about during slave patrols, and ever since then, they have done nothing but protect property and harm people. I can tell that most of you are unfortunately thinking more about the property than the people in your community. I can tell that you are more concerned with protecting infrastructure, and you think that violence against property is a bad thing. You think it is immoral for people to protest. You think it is immoral for people to tread on grass and have an encampment, and I think that is the issue. So again, I ask you, is this the city of Urbana where you care about your constituents and you fund preventative care programs and mitigate poverty, or is this the police precinct of Urbana? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Chenoweth. I'm the Cunningham Township Supervisor, Vice Chair of the Continuum of Service Providers of the Homeless, and Board Chair for CU Public Health. First off, I have been doing this work long enough to know that the larger the numbers get, the more abstract they become for policymakers. So I want to bring home what $1 million or $2.5 million means. But let's just talk about $1 million. $100,000 would put every known homeless resident we work with, we're the only street outreach group in town, 40 residents in housing and case management during the hottest and coldest 4 months of the year. 200, and we were recently turned down by the state for that, so I don't have that program. $240,000 literally ended literal homelessness for families in Urbana. With a fraction of this money, we could fund the reopening of the living room by Rosecrans, which is the #1 safety investment that you could be making right now. $50,000, half of one patrol officer, will pay for every Urbana resident with their power and water shut off to have it turned on for a year, like pay 1 year of that budget. 1 million would buy 20 social workers. If you cut that down to just 300,000, you could pay for 5 FTE responders to provide 24/7 response. I recently sat in a meeting 2 weeks ago where a dozen women and 1 man discussed for 2 hours where we could find $6,800 for short-term hotel stays for homeless families because ROE had lost their funding. I literally sat there, and at the end of the meeting, I said, well, Urbana is talking about raising the police budget by another $2.5 million on top of what they just did the last 2 years. Maybe you should talk to Urbana. We can fund alternative response and services to connect that response to. Both are needed, just as dozens of communities have done. When we do this, we will solve so many problems and we will reduce so much harm. We are in a public health crisis and we need a public health solution. Chandra. More police, including non-sworn officers, will not get that. It is simply the wrong tool for the job. Barry Dunn does offer us data, and that's a piece of the solution. But ultimately, it's up to us to do it for ourselves. You are not the expert in making a decision about how to solve this problem, nor am I, nor is Chief Boone. I have spoken now to people who have worked in Madison, Chicago, Evanston, Oak Park, Dayton, and Gainesville. I spoke with a Chicago alderperson today. What I have learned is what Obama's 21st Century Report said. It is what the key principles say. You have to include community partners. You cannot do this without partnership. And yet this council continues to move forward in this moment. I saw the straw poll. I look at, and I assume this morning that you'll be going forward with some level of investment. It makes no sense why you would invest in this point in an expansion without a model, given that you've already invested $230,000 in studying that model. And we have not been convened yet to have that conversation. I had one conversation with Barry Dunn. I was told that racial equity was not in scope. That's a problem. You should fix that. And then I was told, well, we are looking to see how we can offload calls to you and where you might be able to seek funding for that. And we want to know what calls we could offload to you. That is not collaboration, right? So I am asking the council, one, to get hold of that consultant and provide some direction or get a new consultant, but slow down and include the community in this conversation. You did it in December, and that was a right decision for you at that time, and we thought that we would be further along. In fact, if you look, the community conversations were supposed to happen this spring, and they haven't yet. So just because you're in a budget season does not mean you need to move forward. There is something called a budget amendment. You can do that in 6 months. I ask you to hold the line. Talk with the community. Talk with first followers. Talk with you, Tribe. And then let's make a decision together. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elise, and I live in Urbana. Like many of us, I'm asking you all to stop the increase in the police budgeting, especially since the majority of 911 calls for Urbana are non-criminal and non-violent, especially considering that there are issues of housing insecurity and hunger on the rise. Increasing $4 million is distasteful. Given dozens of cities dispatch community responders in informed, nonviolent ways, which show that investing in communities with people who are actually helpful, again informed, reduces the harm associated with many marginalized identities and even just people, the community as a whole. Given that this council has approved significant increases in Urbana police while defunding community programs, I do not support hiring more police officers and other increases in police spending. So this is a matter of whether you all prioritize the well-being of our community instead of private property. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city officials. My name is Thorne Westfall. I am currently a 3-year resident of Urbana, Ward 3. Prior to my 6-year term in the Army, I was also a 3-year resident of Urbana. During that time, I considered myself a resident of Urbana, even though I had traveled all around the world and I've been across the seas. I've spent time, energy fighting for this country and people's rights and people's ability to speak to their leaders and speak to power. And I don't have much to say today. I didn't prepare a speech, and I think that many people have said what I wish to say with a lot more power and a lot more statistics. But I decided that since I was here, I would try to impart some wisdom that I gained while I was in the military, a little thing called the Army values. And one of those is integrity. To put it succinctly, integrity is basically how you act when no one's watching. And today, in these streets, in this building with these cameras on, everyone is watching. And everyone is seeing how people behave. And everyone is seeing how our police officers behave. And it's disgraceful. This is what people are seeing. This is how people are acting when everyone is watching. If that isn't a display of the integrity and the values at play here, I don't know what is. I'm here today to say that as a member of this community, I oppose the increase of the police budget. I think that from the voices that we've heard today, the voices you've been hearing for weeks and months, the data that you've heard, that is clear that the community feels the same way. This isn't a matter of discussion. If you are representing the people of this city, the people who are speaking here today, I think you know what the right decision is. Thank you.
I'm Stuart Levy. I live in Champaign, but I work and shop and spend a lot of time in Urbana, and I feel like I have a stake in the city. And I want to emphasize one of the other reasons for going slow on this, and that is, what is the city going to do for money in the out years? So the city of Champaign is going through budgeting also, and they recently had a question. So for most of the questions that come before the council, they have already thought out what they're going to do. For this question, they had to think about it, and they did in front of the public. And the question was, with the end of the state 1% grocery tax, they were going to have about just under $3 million per year budget hole to fill, and what should they do? And so they talked about it, they held straw polls, they considered this, that, and the other tax options. It was a well-planned thing, and they considered it, and I imagine they're going to propose one of these tax increases in their current budget. So I guess there was some discussion of this budget hole here, but I don't hear of anything proposed for a tax increase. What I see instead is drawing down of the budget reserve to just barely above the minimum, and the assumption that future years are going to be just about as good as immediately past years have been. So the city of Champaign was not assuming that. They made their economic estimates went out a year later than the city of Urbana ones did, and they're expecting to lose a good deal more money in 26 than they are in 25. And I look at the state office that makes these sort of economic estimates, the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, and they too are expecting that the coming years are going to be leaner than the recently passed ones, even aside from ARPA. There are, like reductions in GDP and so on. It is fiscally irresponsible for the city to assume that the 25 budget, the 25 forecast is going to be a good way to go forward. If you adopt the budget as it's being discussed, you'll be committing to spending a huge amount of money on police who once hired. They're on your staff. You're stuck with them as an ongoing expense. The city is going to have no margin. That is a very foolish thing to do. You need to not commit to a large ongoing expense without considering exactly what you're into, what kind of tax increases are going to be needed to support it, and whether that is really the best way to spend, multiple millions of dollars. So please stop and think.
Hi there. My name is Camille Cobb. I live in Champaign, spend a lot of time in Urbana. I want to echo what everyone else here has said. I don't see any good reason for increasing the police budget, and I think there are many good reasons not to. And so I want to echo all of that. But what I want to speak about is I have two questions that I hope that you'll ask yourselves and ask the folks around you in terms of looking at data, wondering about what's happening, discussing things before you pass this budget. The first addresses sort of the heart of why I don't see any good reason for us to increase the police budget. And the second is sort of what I hope you'll do because it seems like many of you are committed to passing this budget despite the evidence and despite what people want in the city. So the first question I have for you to ask others, not that you could answer this to me, but is why is the average time that police spend responding to calls for service in Urbana so much higher than other cities? According to the Barry Dunn data, it's enough higher in Urbana for both service calls and crime calls. It's a little bit lower for traffic calls, but regardless, it's enough higher here that fully makes the difference in terms of Barry Dunn's recommendation for adding all these new officers over what we currently have. So if you use the average times from other cities, we just need the number of police that we already have. And now the reason I think this question is so important is partly because it's so deeply at the heart of this call for more, but also because based on what I've seen, the time is already being used really inefficiently. So as one example, yesterday I arrived at Schnucks in the early evening, at the Urbana Schnucks, and there was an ongoing event. I saw 5 patrol cars. At some point, I stayed and observed for a while. At some point, a fire truck came and an EMS truck. And what I saw happening was that there was one person who was escalated, who maybe had some drug situation happening, and who the workers at Schnucks mentioned to me is like sort of a known person that's been around before. But this person was wearing basketball shorts and no shirt. They clearly didn't have a weapon. They were escalated, but they had been moved farther from people and who were shopping, and they didn't seem to be posing a threat to anyone. I don't see any reason why 5 people with guns need to surround one person who needs help. That doesn't make sense. And not only were 5 people with guns there, it took them, apparently, according to the person who worked there, 20 minutes to get there, which is a long time and might be part of your argument for why we need more police, but there's no reason. Why couldn't one person get there? 2 people get there sooner. Something is clearly wrong, and it's not the number of people that are on staff. The other reason is that I was there for around 25 or 30 minutes, and 4 police officers were still there the whole time. 1 left a bit sooner. That's like 110 or 120 minutes worth of response time total. So that's even, that one event is going to make our average even higher because the response time for others so far, like the average before, was like 70 minutes. So this exceeds that by a lot, of officer minutes. Because those numbers that Barry Dunn has already factor in backups. So are we just sending a ton of backup every time, unnecessarily, to have a ton of people respond to every event? Why? Why is our response time or our time to be at calls for service so much higher than other cities? I think it's a question you really need to be asking because it's really driving this call for so many more police officers. And then second, because like I said before, I'm really frustrated and sad to know, or to feel, that several of you, too many of you, unfortunately, are going to vote for this anyway. And so if you're going to do that, what I'd really hope that you do first is ask yourselves, several of the things you're voting on are pilot programs. What does success look like for those? What does that mean? Don't pass this budget before you've defined what success will look like so that you can look back when those are done and decide whether it was successful. Because what I've seen is that Chief Boone claims success in terms of racial justice in his previous work, but I don't see that. I looked at the Norfolk use of force data from 2019 through 2024 because they keep it, and it's so racially discriminatory. Around 40% of Norfolk is black, and yet around 75 or 80% of the time when police in Norfolk use of force, it's against black people. And that's from 2019 to 2024, and there didn't seem to be any trend in terms of the percentage of use of force that would have been, if that were the end of Boone's tenure there, you would hope that he had achieved success and that we would be lower than 80, but there's just no trend. So given that one of the things we're really hoping for here is to improve justice, think about what success looks like. Thanks.
Adam Nichols. I live in Urbana. It's really hard to go up after all of these passionate speakers, but here I am. So a little bit about me. My house is on Vawter. I am part of the neighborhood watch there. I have taken the citizens police training here, and it was at the university a few years ago, and I graduated from that. And my brother is a police officer, so not here, elsewhere. So just to give you some background about me and where my perspective is coming from. So I also wanted to talk about some of the things that I think many of us can agree on here. I know it seems like that's few and far between, but one of the things is I think most people here think that police should be part of the solution to keeping people safe from violent crime. Like whether we're want to cut the police budget, keep it the same, or raise it, I think we all kind of agree on that, or almost all at least. Another thing that I'd like to point out is Chief Boone can run the Urbana PD however he wants, regardless of what happens with the budget. If he wants to cut the 5 beats down to 3 so that there's double coverage, he can do that. He doesn't need council's permission. He doesn't need to consult the public. That's his right as the chief. Yeah, that's, short of removing him from office, that's his prerogative. The decision about where Urbana spends its tax money is not Chief Boone's decision. It's up to the council and hopefully with input from the people. And I want to free up Urbana PD from responding to calls for barking dogs, noise complaints, homeless people just, existing. Like people call the police on them. People with dementia. There was a case recently where an old woman called because she was lonely, and the police showed up, and did their best to address the call, but there's not a whole lot they can do. So I do want to reduce that. I want to, help them out, help support our officers. And I think the way to do that is to have these people that everybody before me has referred to, people who can, provide shelter for them or drug rehab or, whatever it is that they particularly need. In terms of the budget, basically the proposed budget is going to spend as much money as policy allows, running a deficit. And basically, if it's passed as is, that's saying that after this budget passes, we're good. We won't need any money in the future except for some, one-off expenses. But there will be no need to hire any more people, fund any more programs than we have, give people raises for this who work for the city, things like that. And there won't be any unforeseen needs that arise, or anything like that, because we've already maxed out the budget, so we'd have to cut some things. And I think it would make more sense to just not spend the money in the first place, let it remain in the general fund so that we have more flexibility, so that we have some more fiscal responsibility. So another thing we could invest in, as opposed to, a double-digit number or more police officers, would be economic development. So we have economic development for improving buildings, specifically in certain zones. But that seems to be it. And I've reached out to city staff to try and find out what else is available, because I've seen if you have a brick and mortar business, you might be able to get some help with, construction or renovations and things like that. I haven't seen anything else for any kind of business where people work from home, or big tech businesses, or things where you don't have a whole bunch of brick and mortar facilities. If we did invest in economic development and it was successful, that would bring in more revenue without raising the tax rate. And that would be, up to the council how to spend. We could leave it in the general fund, do more economic development, invest in police, invest in alternatives to police. It seems like there are a lot better options than just throwing more money at the police department. Thanks.
Good evening, Council. My name is Luke Lee. I'm a resident of Champaign. I work in Urbana. Spend a lot of time and money in Urbana. I didn't prepare much for tonight, and I following up on what so many of my neighbors have said tonight. I don't think I need to say much more. I mean, I think the decision is pretty clear. The council needs to listen to the community, like slow down. Like I'm thinking about the first followers survey. You know, like there's so many people working every day with folks at the margins. We need to slow down and listen to our constituents, listen to our neighbors. Thank you.
My name is Gwyneth Crepsio. I'm a resident of Urbana, resident of Ward 5. I'm here. I went to the town hall that we had yesterday, and I've been really listening to the community members, really enjoying the other speakers, and I'm here to ask you to reflect on how you view community involvement, because it's clear that the community is involved, that we're asking you to slow down to involve us, which you haven't been doing, which it seems like you've even been actively undermining involving us. And from my perspective, it seems like the police department are your coworkers and we're the thorn in your side. And I want to know why that is, because I want to remind you that some communities have completely lost faith in their governance and aren't even willing to speak with their city councils. I went to school here. I went to Urbana Middle School and high school, and I have been in this town for a long time. I think there's something really remarkable that we have in this town that sometimes isn't always in other places. And I see a very engaged and committed community here. I see one full of wisdom and intelligence, both from an academic and from a lived experience and from lived experiences. And I wonder, we've been seeing that our crime rates are going down, why that is. I think from living here and having seen all the ways that our government has disappointed us in the past and the ways that we've had to manage with and without budgets from the city, from the state, for a long time, we've been taking care of each other. And I want to ask, why haven't you been asking the real experts, the real people that have been in our communities taking care of each other? And the real experts in our community are the ones that have already been doing the work and already been reducing crime and already been taking care of each other. And I want to know why you haven't acted with the respect and the dignity that we deserve. I want to know why you haven't been working to earn our trust, because I think that you could earn our trust if you wanted to, if you had the courage to do the job that you profess to uphold. Then you could rebuild the trust that you've been losing by not involving us. So I want to mirror what everybody else has been saying to slow down the process, involve this community, and involve the people that are already doing this. Because a lot of people have been talking about burnout, but I also, when I think about the work that's getting done, I do think about folks that are getting burnt out. And I also think about all the people that are hungry for work, that are desperate for a way to connect, and that would love the opportunity to support each other in a way that has some structure and has some support and resources from the city. That's what I want to see from City Council, and that's what I'm asking for you to do in your position. Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Sana Sabwala. I've been a CU resident for 6 years. I currently live in Ward 5 in Urbana. I'm a member of the CU Muslim Action Committee. I'm going to reiterate some of the points that have already been made here today. Thank you to the council members who have stood with us in saying that we shouldn't rush into hiring more police. Violent crime is at a historic low. There's an opportunity here to take time and create alternative response models that work for the community. And hiring more police officers will make implementing new creative solutions to our community's needs less feasible. That money should be earmarked for alternatives or community services that are well researched. Alternatives to policing is something this council and this community are interested in. That's why the Barry Dunn was hired in the first place. We haven't had the opportunity to see what those alternative response models could look like, which should come from the community and be housed outside the police. Let's at least consider our options before taking expensive action. Talk to the community about what the local needs are and what the people most impacted think the ways forward could be. That was the point of hiring Barry Dunn in the first place, and that hasn't been done, so there's no need to create solutions without doing the research first. The IMC has already started doing all of the groundwork on this, including the presentation on alternative response models in March and the circulating petition in which over, I think, 618 community members have shown that they support exploring alternative options before increasing funding to the police. First Followers, as we heard, is also out here doing the work that is the community needs in preventing crime. I'm shocked to hear that a fraction of the money we are considering using to fund police could literally end homelessness here. I didn't know that until Danielle spoke earlier. Like, as a member of the public and a fairly engaged one, you all know me, I'm here almost every week. I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that. So how can I expect somebody who's not as engaged to know that those are our options, right? Like, we could hire more police, or we could use that money to do all these other things. And so, like, I'm realizing that I have to be more well-informed about this issue, but also that we have a responsibility to provide people with this kind of contextual information when we conduct surveys of the community. And I think the model that First Followers used is a great idea. We should take the time to put that kind of survey out before we rush into any decisions. And what we're asking for is not very radical at all. We've known for a long time that policing is full of issues, and increasing police funding doesn't solve those systemic issues. Some of the most well-funded police departments are the most violent. Just because UPD isn't NYPD or LAPD doesn't mean our police are immune to the systemic structures in policing that value property over personhood, that have persisted since the time when the primary purpose of the police was to keep people enslaved. Radical abolition is the goal for many people, but today we aren't even here asking you to defund the police. We're here asking you to leave things as they are and consider what alternatives could look like. I'm sure that we all want to see positive change in this community. Doing the same thing we've done every budget cycle, increasing the police budget, won't change anything. We've tried it before, right? As some people from First Followers have said, we have the opportunity to do something different here. Now we're asking the city council to provide space to seriously imagine alternatives. There's no rush to hiring more police. I think there's no need to make an unpopular decision. Hold off. Decide next steps when you've truly explored all the options and laid them out. Take this opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to thank City Council and admin, City Clerk for your hard work. I also really appreciate all the comments that I listened to and learned tonight. I heard a lot of empathy. I heard a lot of passion. I also heard confusion and lack of communication. I talked and volunteer in the community all the time. And people talk to me expressing concern. And from ward to ward, I heard so many different things. With that, I would like to encourage that we have FAQ to address, a lot of things that we heard from the community. Would tax be increased? Where would money come from? Because I watch you guys every week, so I learn a lot. But I am not elected official like you guys. So to have one document and educate the community so we don't have to walk around being confused. And then we can have real conversation. There's a lot of good points. And I was like sitting in the back hoping that somebody would say what I'm gonna say so I don't have to speak in front of you guys. But nobody did, so reluctantly I have to be here. I wanna share with you that I was a victim of domestic violence. I did not want to talk because it triggered trauma in me. I got help that I needed. My ex-husband got help that he needed. So we are okay. But I couldn't sleep. I couldn't live with myself if I wouldn't come in front of you and share with you how it actually works. And yes, being a victim for 7 years, I'm gonna claim that I am an expert in this field because I live that life. First, I wanna share that the victim of domestic abuse don't necessarily know that they are. So, I am telling you right now that if it's not because of my neighbor downstairs, I used to live in Ward 3, live in a little apartment after I graduated with my ex-husband, who is, by the way, a war hero. So I thought I living American life, being an immigrant, I wouldn't know a lot about culture. I did not know that American yelling and screaming is not normal. I thought you guys like to scream at each other, right? So my neighbor did not think so. She called 911. And that is the moment that my life changed. I felt distraught. I felt helpless. I did not have anybody in this country at the time. I wouldn't want to talk to my coworker because I did not know that I was a victim. Anyway, police show up. I am telling you right now that no social worker can pair with my ex-husband. He is in the army. Police put him away. And that is when I know that I wasn't alone. Police officers show up for me. 6 years later, along the way, police officers show up for me for everything. I lived through circle abuse. I lived through restraining order. I lived through police report. You need both. If you never need police, good for you. You are perfect and you are lucky. But some of us who not being here, telling you, being in front of you because we are scared and afraid to talk to you, especially if we don't think you will listen. You can protect people. I am here to let you know that by having both, the police will save somebody that could have been in the situation that they did not know that they can use help. We count on you to do the right thing because we need both. We count on you to educate our community and let my fellow citizens know what is it that we need from you. I call Courage Connection today to make sure that I am still up to date with information. No, they will not talk to non-victim. Any instant, we need to call on the police. We need to call 911. If you take police away from us, there would not be any protection for people that need police.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, advertise. Hi, my name is Zara. I live in Ward 1. Recently moved from California, but I'm still a resident here. And so I just wanted to voice some of the things that have already been said. I went to my first town hall yesterday. Yay me, not my last one. But $2.7 million per year is not a small amount of money. That could fund many nonprofits, right? Like for the year. And that being said, for multiple years with no plan of how to come up with that money on your own and not rely on an increase in taxes is asking a lot from the people that pay taxes, right? And there is, if we hold nonprofits accountable to come up with their money for each fiscal year, and I understand this is a public service, I understand that. But if we're saying that to many nonprofits that still exist for many years, right? Why can't we hold the police accountable for that? And Philo Road is not that far away. It is a 3-minute drive from where we are now. So that increases our response time for 3 minutes. What about the other, 17 minutes? So not much will change. And many other things I want to say, but speaking out a little bit. But I think it's really important to keep that in mind. Also, having a one-stop shop for all social justice at the law, under law enforcement, right, isn't going to work for everyone because many people don't trust law enforcement, right? So if you're going to have many resources here, not everyone's going to come. And so that's why it's important to rely on the community and the resources that already exist and expand those. And because we're already outreaching to the community, right? Those nonprofits are already existing and have existed for many years, and people know about those resources. So it's important to invest in them maybe a little bit more than expanding the law enforcement that we have. And when we talk about needs, let's think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? In order to reduce crime, we need to reach and meet basic needs: housing, food, and jobs, right? And especially that 18 to 34 age group. I'm no longer in that, but it's important to me because I want to make sure the youth get careers, not just jobs, right? We want people to thrive and enjoy the work that they do, not just have a job and do a 9-to-5 and be miserable in it. We want to make sure people are thriving so we add to our generation, right? And that might mean not funding law enforcement. I'm not saying don't fund law enforcement. I'm saying slow down and think about it and say, how can we do more? Because we don't have to say yes today. We could say yes in 2 weeks, in 4 weeks, in 6 weeks. No one's saying say no forever. We're saying say no now so we can know what this means for the future. Taxes will keep going up. I have never seen a tax go down in my whole existence. So there's time to increase tax. Let's not do it today.
Hi, my name is Brian Maxwell. I'm a resident of Ward 5, live a few blocks over. I'm also speaking today to ask that for a couple things. One, like people have said, I don't see a reason to rush this process that we're kind of barreling headlong into. There's some justification for waiting for the end of the Barry Dunn report, which there's been a lot of emphasis on. We've spent a lot of money on. We haven't even got to the point where we're talking about the alternative response model. But I also don't want to put that much emphasis on it because I think it's backwards that we're putting so much emphasis on an outside consulting firm and their opinion on this when we have so much experience in this town of people who've been working this space, who were born here, who have been working in this kind of space for decades, and they're pretty adamantly saying here in front of you that they're opposed to this kind of budget increase. I think we should be lifting up those opinions more personally. I think we should involve the community more. I don't think there's been a lot of space for involving the community in this process. Everyone's saying the same thing. Barry Dunn's saying the same thing. UPD's saying the same thing. The city council, the community groups. We want more community involvement, but there doesn't feel like there's been a ton of community involvement in this process and feedback. Just hearing the responses in the room, it doesn't seem like that's the case. We had our third town hall this weekend. Appreciate the council members who came out to that. It was obviously a busy weekend, so I appreciate you coming out with Father's Day and the holiday weekend. And we heard a lot of really good conversations in that meeting. There's a lot of like really engaged people in this community who would be willing to help you out and build these programs, build this. And I just think in the long run, it would be a more successful program that you're trying to build, public safety, if you have that input from everyone. And last, I would ask that you just, like, again, like some people have talked about, don't pass like what seems like a pretty unsustainable budget. The one that like jumps out to me is this 3-year pilot program that's like $1.6 million. It's crazy to me that at the end of like a historic low in crime and this whole conversation about alternative response models, at the end of it, we're talking about having like a second police station in Urbana. It seems crazy to me. Like we're like 50,000 people and Philo Road's like right there. That kind of seems crazy to me, especially when we could be funding so many other things with that money. A lot of people talked about housing. That came up a lot in the town hall, the importance of housing. Housing insecurity is on the rise. Homeless population, unhoused population is on the rise. And that I've worked in that community quite a bit, worked at Strides before Strides was Strides and the canteen run. And I know that this is something that UPD has to deal a lot with. And this is like kind of something that is like a thing that we could solve the issue that's causing poverty by putting people in homes, but then also take some of the workload off UPD. It seems like a win-win situation. And Danielle kind of obviously gave some really great numbers of how cheap it would be to do that. With ARPA funding, I mean, the city gave out like $900,000 in money for housing, and we were able to leverage like a permanent housing community for like 30 people. That seems like a really good return on investment. And then last, like, you got to put resources out there for these other alternative response models that we want. If we get to this Barry Dunn report and Barry Dunn's like, yeah, this is like the best thing you could do. This is best like bargain you could jump on it right now. Like what money is there in the future budget to do any of that? It seems like there's basically no money in the future budget to do any of that. So, I'd just finish up with that. Slow down, get some community involvement in this process, and put some resources out there for some of the stuff that you are saying that you want to put out there in the community. Thanks.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Naima Johnson, and I just want to talk on the behalf of the community. Everything everybody's saying is very heartwarming. I worked at Urbana School District for many years now, about 4 or 5 years. Worked for RPC before. I've been homeless before and worked for the homeless shelter before. And I can say just riding down the streets and seeing the mothers with their children trying to collect food and money to provide for their families is very heartbreaking. We need to collaborate, get together a little bit better with not just for the police officers, but for the community, for the homeless community, for the schools, for the mental health well-being, to see why it's a repetitive cycle of the adults keep on getting homeless, been in the homeless cycle, or keep on getting sick from different things. It's something that's bothering everybody. It's inner rooting from inside, and that's why I need more mental health services where, everybody could see the root of the issue behind them being homeless or whatever. And not just that, the schools need more services. The teachers need more services. The children, they cry out for help. They have so many behavioral issues in the schools these days that you cannot imagine. The teachers are getting bullied day in and day out in the schools, And, the students, they deal with a lot. Grandmothers raising them, auntie raising them, grandfathers raising them, because the parents, they're just lost. They have so many mental issues or so many problems that they need assistance with. So let's just try to collaborate, get together a little bit better, and try to love on each other more and spread more love than hate, you know. So that's all I got to say.
Hello, Mayor and City Council, and each and every one of you. I'm Reverend Dr. Evelyn Underwood, and I have a lot to say. But I want to say, first of all, I've been at home watching, but tonight I felt I needed to come, and I thank Pastor Carr for bringing me. But I just want to say that I've seen America, the experiment at work. We the people. I'm not emotional. I just talk loud sometimes. We the people at work. America will not work unless we do what we're doing, being involved. And it's been great to lay at home and cry. And I can't snot and cry here. To see the people, letting the people we elect know what we're thinking. Way back in the day, when I was an elected official, the people who didn't come to the meeting, they didn't have to come. They ran it. They didn't have to come. They told us what we need to do, but some of us didn't accept it. But I don't think this city council is like that. We've been coming for many, many years. And I believe they're listening. Of course, they can't say anything. Of course, they just listen to us. But I just want to say, I'm seeing America at work. We the people. We have to let our elected officials know what we're thinking. And all of us are not thinking alike, that's fine. We all have ideas. And I've heard qualitative, I do have a PhD, and quantitative analyses. So a lot of good information has gone out. And I think that's important. And I guess I'm supposed to talk to the city council. That's it. I was just looking around. But I think it's important for them to hear what the common people, and some people, Rich, I don't even know who you are, but whoever, people of goodwill, people who think America should work. Because if we don't hold our elected officials accountable so they can hold their staff. We just went through something, and my time is going to be out, so let me just say that I have gone on when I ran for mayor from the Democratic Party a few years back. I went to the police, and they know I went on the, rideabout, enjoyed myself and looked to see what they were doing. And it was a lot of them are doing a wonderful job. And I know, still are. But we have paid $237,000 for that very report, and we got one phase of it. We need to wait, not wait like sit down and do nothing. I mean, wait while we keep on doing research and keep on coming to see what's going to happen, because we don't have to make the decision now. We don't have to make the decision now. They don't have to make the decision now for us. I think those are the key points. A lot of people have said a lot of wonderful things. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say, President Minnie Pearson came and talked about having a summit, a forum, there's many names, town hall. But what Mr. Kilgore said was so important. The people who are impacted, the poor, the people who've been incarcerated, they need to have input on whatever we have, because they're the ones that are in the trenches. You know, the homeless, everybody's talked wonderfully. Thank you.
I'm going to say a few words, and I have on these shades because end of May, I was in a car accident and walked away, didn't even realize I had concussion symptoms. And my name is Melinda Carr, pastor, Eldris. It's good to see everybody here, and I've been watching from home as well, people coming out. And I've been on this journey for a little while in different roles as the president of the Minister Alliance, and talked to a lot of different community people and things that I've heard, not just heard, that I know to be true. When I walked away from that accident, the Urbana police were involved, and the police did a good job. There's some things that I need to follow up with as far as the process of reporting accidents. That needs to be reviewed. As far as what we're looking at now, I did attend the community neighborhood meetings, and there were 2 of us at the meeting where Chief Boone attended, and a few things that I remember talking about. One was the Barry Dunn report, and I felt like the report was too long, and me having a master's degree, I said it should have had a glossary to describe some of the information in the survey. And I did say that to Chief Boone and the staff who were there. And hopefully there will be some community input. I can't even see paying that money and then follow up, not involve the community, especially me going through that report and that survey, seeing the information and not understanding some of the terms that I just went through and took it because I needed to see it, and I printed it out as well, and I have a copy of it. So, and some things have to do with the internal structure of the police, the police department that we've talked about over the years, the FOB, the agreement, some things that the community has not been involved with that have gone on for years. So we got to talk about some of these other things, the Citizens Review Board. We got to work on the internal structure before we start hiring a lot of more people. Let's talk about who we have now. We got some good folks, that came was on the scene with me and didn't walk away till the tow truck left. And I told him, I said, I talked at the city council meeting, I looked at his name, and I will say something to the chief about the person. So I just wanted to say, we got to have balance. People are even fearful of making complaints. And I remember saying to the chief, he said in Norfolk, they have a lot more complaints. They don't have very many here because people are fearful of reprisal. So we have to make it so people don't have to be fearful. And it can be a performance tool. What did they do well? They did this well. Or they didn't do so well. But they have to be what? They have to be challenged. We all do. We have to be held accountable. Nobody does everything perfectly. And so the police have to be held accountable just like I do. We can't just give them a blank check and say, go do what you want to do. Nobody has that authority on this earth. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for listening, and I pray that we all will be able to get some work done. Thank you.
Hi, City Council. My name is Carmen Gorth. I grew up in Urbana and am currently an Urbana resident. I'm really inspired by a lot of what people have said, and I also appreciate all of your time. I didn't prepare much, but I think just like from hearing from everyone, there's been a lot of things that have come up about mental health services and just kind of recognizing like what does the community need. I think sometimes we forget that when we talk about mental health, right, we're talking about health, we're talking about healthcare. It's really easy, like someone brought up, like why do people commit crimes, right? Like it's for a reason. Like people are not just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go do this, or I'm just gonna go, be in the streets just because I want to. Like that's not a choice that people make. And so I think just recognizing, like, if we're really talking about healthcare and we're talking about health of people and we're also talking about health of community, it does feel silly to respond to that with like this kind of wall of police, or adding to that and taking away money from other programs. And there's this phrase that I feel like I always come back to, which is like, you cannot heal without community, like healing through relationships. And I think what that means is that like we have to respond to what the community needs with more community relationships and more community, services. And so if we just are sending someone who's sort of supposed to be this like, flat, emotionless, and dominant person to someone who is incredibly vulnerable, and also that police officer is often like, you and I are very different. We are in very different situations, when like, like we're talking about in this community, like we all are struggling. You all struggle too, right? Like we're part of a community. How can we not struggle when we have community members that are struggling so much? And so I think just recognizing that that those community services and mental health services are so important. And so I'm asking you all to slow down about your decision as well, in terms of your budget, and also just really recognizing like it's not just about the individual and problems with the individual. And I think police, often what happens is they look at one individual and they say, you have problems, you are ill. And it's like, you're not ill, we have, our community is ill, right? It's not just an individual. So we have to respond to it like that, so.
My name is Marina Manetti. I've lived in the city since '77. I took a break at East Lansing for a while and came back here. I've been studying at the university for many years, and I've been studying just the people of the community, myself in it as well. And people are hurting. We're hurting real bad. And when a person somehow hits a jackpot in a short amount of time, gets trained and has 2 guns in his holster or her holster, that's a rush of power right there. That's a rush of power. It's the slow and steady studying, the listening, the reflecting, the slow work of studying history, possibilities, alternatives, that's going to get us out of this extreme state of anxiety and stress that you're witnessing in the population in the face of a person who's got 2 guns in their holster. We don't need more violence. We need care. We need care, slow care, attention, and support. Why are you throwing more military? We don't want a police state. Why are we going with a shot in the arm to a police state, and then you're exiting your offices after you give us that, and we keep on pleading for help? What's this? What's this? How did this happen? What's going on? People are trying to get in the big lights real quick. Is that what's happening? Things are happening behind the scenes. Is that what's happening? We don't need the prisons filled more than they are. They're a huge place of violence. We need people working on instruments, playing music, reading, writing poetry, teaching each other, caring, listening to their stories, and connecting to each other. Not guns. I don't want to live in a police state. It looks like the chickens are coming home to roost. From what's been done all over the globe, it's coming now home. We need to study history. We need to see the patterns here. We live in a patriarchal society, yeah? Some things have to change. The children speak to us, the animals speak to us, the plants. Without the plants, we're dead meat. We have big problems to tackle here. The biosphere is on a very precarious balance. And we're wasting time with guns? This is ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
Does anyone else wish to address the Urbana Council?
I apologize. We have actually met the 2 hours currently for public input, so unless there is an action to extend, that will conclude public input for this meeting. There are 2 more meetings still this evening with their own opportunities for public input, and public input via email, written input is always accepted at every meeting through the adjournment of the meeting, so that is the cutoff point for that.
I don't see anyone else wishing to speak at this point. We can do that in one of the next 2 meetings. Yeah. We'll move on to council input and communications. Mary Alice.
I have input.
Go ahead, Grace. Then we'll go to Mary Alice.
Oh, sure. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say I'm here, had trouble connecting in the first few minutes. I wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending and sharing your thoughts tonight and other ways that people have been engaging with participating in this conversation. Just a reminder that people of Urbana are at the top of the city organizational structure, and I intend to continue to work for the people of Urbana. Again, the complication is when the people don't always agree, which is all the time. I think there's a place for different and diverse perspectives, and I see and hear throughout a lot of this process an opportunity to build a system of safety with our community stakeholders. I'm thankful for the offer from CU Tri to help with trauma support with the city and our police department. And we have many other organizations, many of which have spoken tonight, who I think we need to work with in the process of designing public safety. Also wanted to clarify that I take public input seriously and take the traumatic personal experiences with police officers that have been shared as additional considerations for not expanding the police department, including some of my own direct and indirect experiences. There's plenty of horrific examples that highlight the potential risks of officer interactions with the public, and there are also many positive interactions that happen on a day-to-day basis when officers do help and serve the public. And that's why I think it's important that we are sure that we have the appropriate response team for any emergency situation. I'm in support of collaboratively creating a comprehensive community safety response with community stakeholders rather than spending a lot of taxpayer money on the proposed police model that hasn't even been made clear yet. If we want better relationships with officers in the community, then we have to work with the community to create that solution. I hope that the community, everyone who's been following along and engaging, continues to participate in these budget conversations and follow the next meetings later tonight and the final discussions next week. Thank you.
Mary Alice.
Yeah, I just wanted to share some information that we received from the police department late on Thursday, because there has been some question about violent crime in the city of Urbana. So the police department provided to City Council year-to-date comparisons between January 1st and May 27th, both last year and this year. They broke it down between violent crime and property crime by each ward. So, in summary, there were 5 out of 7 wards that had an increase in violent crime. 1 ward stayed exactly the same, and 1 ward decreased. That was Ward 4. Of importance, I think, is that there is crime in varying. It's not even, right? It's not evenly distributed between 7 wards. And so I do want to bring attention to Ward 7, where it increased significantly in violent crime from 61 instances to 97 instances. So that's pretty significant. And then the second one, which is quite disturbing to myself, is that there was quite a big increase in rape in Ward 3. So I just wanted to share that as informational. Thank you.
Any other comments? Jaya.
Thank you. I do want to, there are a lot of thoughts I have in my head right now, but I think because of my professional background, I do want to also clarify that increased reportings of sexual violence does not mean increases in incidents. That actually is probably a good sign that more of our community members are trusting that they can make those reports. The vast majority of sexual assaults are never reported to law enforcement. So while I think that data is important, I also think it's important not to conflate increased reporting with increased incidents. That's not accurate. And like I said, I think that actually is probably demonstrating increased trust with law enforcement. I think there are a lot of things that we could talk about. I'm grateful for all the public comment. I've been doing my best to try to connect with residents in the 4th Ward. I've heard from folks by email. I was at the event at the IMC yesterday. I've had phone call conversations, in-person conversations with constituents to make sure that I'm doing my very best to represent the voices of folks in the 4th Ward. And some of the things that I know I have asked, and I've been continually hearing from the folks that I represent, and I would like to encourage everyone up here to answer, is why now? Why can this not wait until at least the study is done? Why can't we give our community members an opportunity to share their voices, have their questions answered? There's clearly a lot of confusion, and I think that's sometimes used as an excuse to be dismissive of our constituents when maybe numbers aren't exactly lining up correctly. How are we going to expect them to understand all of that when we haven't had those opportunities to have those conversations? I think it's important that people fully understand what kind of commitment we are being asked to make as part 1, right, when we are fully expecting that there are going to be additional asks in the next 2 to 3 years as well. So that's one question I think that our community deserves a response from everybody up here is why now? The other piece that I think that our community members deserve an answer to is, are you willing to raise taxes when this pilot program is done and our general fund has been decreased? I've heard a lot about expertise. I've never discounted Chief Boone's expertise. I've never discounted the expertise of our officers. I think that is important input. I also think the expertise of our community members is important. I will say that I'm very disappointed by the side comments and the sighs that I have heard even this evening as our community members are trying to express their opinions, their beliefs, their democratic right to speak to this council. I think that they deserve more respect. I think that some of the council members, for asking questions, have been told, well, you're not the experts in this area. I agree. We need more information.
Sharice.
I think the thing that has confused me the most is what our definition of public safety is. I don't know what we regard as public safety because when I look at my statistics for my ward, and Mary Alice was absolutely right when she said that rape has gone up in Ward 3. I don't disregard or try to make it seem like, well, just because it was reported doesn't mean it happened or something. That I don't know. Well, I don't know if that's what you were saying. That's why I said I need to understand the
I absolutely did
definition.
not say that.
Okay, but I need to understand what the definition of public safety is for everybody, because, and not just me, but what you all think public safety is. Because public safety, on my count, when I hear gunshots, I call the police. And I don't have a problem calling them. I'm not afraid to call them. I'm not afraid to let people know I called them, because my name and my address goes out on the scanner every time. But what I want to understand is that it just has been my experience sitting on this council, and I don't like putting it this way, but our public safety, I've come to feel that what I think doesn't matter. I think public safety means when somebody calls the police will show up and they will have an involved and engaged conversation and commitment to trying to make somebody safe. I've had situations where we've called, I've been, witness to someone calling for assault and no one showing up because there weren't enough police on duty. So I don't know, I am not trying to I'm not going to beat up the police about trying to do their job. And I'm definitely not trying to condescend to my ward and my community. I am worried that when we don't have enough people there, I am worried about that. And I think I deserve to be able to say that and to be that concerned, regardless of what other people think in my ward, because we don't all have the same normal. My normal is not somebody else's normal. And I know that. And, what I would also like is some more input without the incendiary words all the time, without saying police state, without just say you don't understand. If you don't understand, I don't understand all the time either. No one is perfect. So what I want is more talking to me. Please do that. Talk to me. I just want you to talk to me.
Any other council comments? Okay, we'll move on to reports of standing committees. There are none. There are no reports from special committees. We have reports of officers. There are none. We have one item of business at this special council meeting, and that is the appointment of Matthew Rushley, city attorney. Welcome. I'll introduce Mr. Rushley, and then Elizabeth Hannon has a couple of comments to make. First of all, the City Council is asked to approve the appointment of Matt Rushley as city attorney for a term ending June 30th, 2025. The start date of this term would be effective July 8th, 2024. Just some brief background. City attorney serves as the chief legal advisor to the mayor and city councilors, responsible for the legal affairs of the city, acts as legal counsel, manages the prosecution and defense of all litigation to which the city is a party, and directs legal division staff and outside counsel. In consultation with the mayor, city administrator, and staff, determines and carries out legal strategies to further the mission and goals of the city. Matt Rushley has nearly 20 years of experience practicing law in the state of Illinois. He spent the majority of his career practicing municipal law in Champaign County. After several years working for private firms in Naperville, Illinois, he became an assistant city attorney for the city of Champaign, Illinois. In 2011, where he prosecuted city ordinance violations, served as primary attorney for several city departments, and advised staff on a variety of legal matters that included municipal code, state and federal law, procurement, intergovernmental agreements, collective bargaining. He has handled, led, or advised on issues related to virtually every aspect of municipal government as an attorney and as an administrator. In 2014, he was promoted to deputy city manager in Champaign. Among his responsibilities in this role were negotiating economic development agreements, serving as liaison to city departments, including legal, human resources, public works, finance, and fire, among others, and researching and authorizing changes to ordinances. He led key aspects of the city's emergency response to the COVID-19 pandemic. At various times, he served as deputy liquor commissioner and as acting city attorney. He has worked with City Council to set goals for each council term, establish strategic initiatives, and advance key projects supporting council goals and objectives. Matt Rushley earned a Juris Doctor from Northern Illinois University College of Law. And just to fill in a couple of other details, we in the past have always had a full-time in-house city attorney and assistant city attorney. After our full-time attorney left in 2021, we were lucky to get the services through contracting with, and I'm blanking, Dave's firm, but we are, I'm not blanking on Dave's name. I can't remember all the names in the firm. But anyway, Dave Wessner has been serving on a contractual basis as our city attorney, and I thank him very much for the efforts. But one of our goals for the last couple of years has to restore the presence of an attorney full-time within the city. It's been one of the top requests from city staff who really do need the presence of a full-time attorney in-house. So we're just delighted to welcome Matt and Elizabeth.
So just a few words to fill you in briefly on the recruitment process. We did expect the market for this position to be challenging when we started the process of filling it, and so we used an outside firm to perform the search. We used GovHR, which we have used for some previous searches. They posted on regional and national websites, but our focus was really regional because we needed an attorney with municipal government experience specifically with experience in the state of Illinois, since our laws around municipal government are different than those in other states. To be sure we did not lose viable candidates, we started interviews as soon as a promising candidate was identified. And while we received multiple applications, no other candidate matched Mr. Rushley's qualifications for this position. At this point in the process, he has completed the interview process and accepted an offer of employment, which is conditioned upon appointment by the City Council. I believe Matt may want to say a few words, and he's also happy to answer questions. I do want to emphasize, though, that this is not an interview, but a confirmation of the mayor's recommended appointment. So, Matt, did you want to say a few words?
I just wanted to say hello and express my gratitude and eagerness to work with each and every one of you, and my love for this community and my intrinsic motivation to serve the public in this community, and have a history of doing so, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue that work. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Rushley? Grace, did you have any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval?
Is this through 2025?
Yes.
End June 30th?
Yes.
All right. I will move approval for Matthew, I apologize, Rushley from until June 30th, 2025.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Chandra. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. Welcome to the city of Urbana. And with no further business before this first of 3 meetings, this meeting is adjourned. And Chandra Bishop will be chairing the next 2. Public hearing is next.